It's 5 o'clock, August 1st, Newtown Township's EAC monthly meeting. I call this meeting to order. I'll start with the roll call. Harry Bryans. Cindy Mahalo.
Present.
Joe Pinto.
Present.
Sheila O'Sullivan Feeney.
Present.
Bruce Killen here. Dane Shoemaker, he is not here. And Janet Kravanis is also not here. Let's take a moment of silence. Okay, pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just before we start into this, we used to have a hard deadline of 6:30 because Steve had another meeting to go to. We don't have that hard deadline anymore, but I still want to try to keep it. I think an hour and a half meeting is plenty. So everybody agrees with that. That's what we're doing. Item 4 on the agenda is consider approving tonight's agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of an approved agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay. Agenda's been approved. Item 5 is public comment for agenda items only. There's no comments, people here. Do we have anything?
We checked the mailbox at 3 o'clock today. We had nothing.
Okay. Agenda item number 6 is the approval of 2 sets of minutes. The minutes from May 2nd meeting and the minutes for the June 6th meeting. We didn't meet in July. Anybody have any comments before I ask for motion to approve the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Yes, second? Second. Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay.
Nay. Oh, sorry.
Passed unanimously. Number 8 is in the new business category. 8.1 is a discussion of township signs. Is this something that you want to lead, Cindy, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you do that then.
Is it possible to show the PowerPoint that I shared? 'Cause I think that would be really helpful.
That would be helpful. Did it didn't get attached, I don't think.
Yes, it was.
I don't know that the signed PowerPoint was attached. It was attached to the email I sent.
Oh, okay. It was the third one. I can send it to you right now, if that's allowed.
While we're doing that, I'll talk about my part of the sign thing. I'm going to order a couple signs, temporary signs. We're going to order a pair of signs for the rain gardens. Just a small 18 by 24. This is what it is. And that'll suffice until such time as we get the permanent signs, which Cindy's going to talk about. So I'll be doing that next week. Yeah, it'll be laminated on a pole of some sort. And the second sign I'm going to be ordering is a pair of signs for Gable Park down here, where we put the native trees for the same purpose, to give some recognition to what's there until the permanent sign comes in. I'm also going to order a banner. We do these public events and we've got Audubon Society banners in the back of us all the time. I thought it'd be nice to have something that says, we're the EAC, this is what we do. And it'll be a table banner that, along with the township logo. Need to.
Do you have it? Do you have the attachment? Okay, can you give me your email? I got it.
And finally, there's a couple kiosks. I'm not sure how many there are in the township. I know the one at the Meadow. I think there's one at Drexel Lodge Park.
Yep.
I'm going to order some signs or something to put in those kiosks that are sustainability related, to kind of advertise the fact that the township does have a program going on. Part of the catalyst for this is when I stand at the farmer's market and I overlook the construction of Ellis Preserve. There isn't a person that I've spoken to from outside of the township that doesn't ask how that happened. So we've got to overcome the road development reputation we have. And I thought by having something in public parks to see about what we're doing with sustainability would help in some form. Yeah, our page or maybe the sustainability page.
Anything that, even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Rose, did you get it? Well, who's that other person? I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay. I should
Okay,
have.
I sent it to,
You sent it to me, I sent it to
no, I
everybody.
sent it to Vanicolo R. at
You can
Newtown.
send it to my email.
Okay, I sent it to you too. So just let me know when it shows up in either of your inboxes. And in the meantime, I can explain what's going on with this. Part of the grant, oh yeah. Sorry about the mask. Part of the grant proposal for the rain gardens and Gable Park was to have interpretive signs. And we want these to be nice, permanent, professionally made signs. And realizing that we're probably embarking on putting these types of signs at a number of places around the township, we wanted to set a standard and kind of a template that could be used across the township for continuity. Have you received it yet? Okay, great. I've been kind of working on the content of those signs. In the meantime, about a month ago, I was approached by Beth, who is with the Trails and Greenway Mission. And they are also very interested in getting signs made. So she and I collaborated, we met and we collaborated on putting together a proposal for a comprehensive signage system that could be used by the entire township. And whether it's trails, greenways, historic commission, parks and rec, we would all follow this common signage system. Now, Beth is an extraordinary resource because she is a park ranger at Valley Forge National Park. She has worked there for years. She has worked on education things, signage things. She's done this before. So she's a great resource. So I have to give her credit. She's the one that put this together. Initially we've collaborated on it. This is a proposal. So I'll just walk you through this. So the 6 days.
What is Beth's last name?
It's Beth Janjisha from
Yes,
Trails and
how do you
Greenways.
say that? I didn't know how to say it.
Janjisha,
So the purpose of this would be to have a consistent graphic identity for the township. Can you go to the next slide, please? And so what is a graphic identity? It's everything from the language to the font, the colors, where the logo is placed, and the design. And why to have one? Well, it easily identifies that you are in Newtown Township. And it makes the signage look more cohesive. And it sets basic rules for all the people who might do a sign, so it's not hodgepodgey. Next page, please. So one of the things we identified was what are the types of signs that we could expect to have at township facilities. And the first would be an entrance sign, which we have pictures of. The next might be kiosks, which there are already a number of kiosks, which are the wood framed things with the little roofs, many of which are made by Eagle Scouts, some of which are made by Public Works. The third one would be kind of the larger, more permanent signs, which we're thinking of putting at Gable Park and the Rain Gardens, educational signs to explain what are people looking at. The fourth type of sign would be a map or a directional sign. And this is something that Beth recommended, like at the beginning of a park, like at the entrance to the Meadow Preserve, like which is going to have trails, or the entrance to the Winding Way Park, Greer Park, again, with trails to show people like what is it that you can expect to find before you go in here. And then also, because trees and tree planting is going to be an important part, we're proposing to have smaller tree identification tags. So
actually helped us. So there are some tags, trees already that are along the Goshen Trail and at Drexel Lodge, but it's really important if we're possible.
Sure.
Then,
Mhm.
but that was very helpful, and they were fantastic.
yeah, that's, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. So next sign, please. So these are just some examples to, show you like what signs look like, the branding of different entities, anything from national parks to county parks to state parks. They're all very distinctive, and when you see them, you kind of recognize, the familiarity. It helps you orient yourself to where you are. So next slide, please. Here are some examples of entrance signs that the township already has. You can see that there is a cohesive look. So that, has kind of already been set. We're not recommending any changes to that. We're just acknowledging that it exists. Next slide, please. The kiosks, I don't have any pictures of them, but you've seen them. And as I said earlier, they would be near the parking lot, right when someone arrives, to give general information about the site, such as the site hours, maybe a QR code for more information. And maybe it would have like a brochure that someone could pull out, and it would have a map or something for people who aren't electronically oriented. But it would hopefully be like in a weatherproof container. It might have a plant list or a trail map or something like that. And then the next thing would be maps or directional signs, which I had mentioned, and these might be at the beginning of a trail or along the trail. For example, at Drexel Lodge Park, you might put it at the entrance to the bridge. For example, one observation that Beth had was she said that the current kiosk at Drexel Lodge Park is down by the bridge. And she thought that was not the best place. She said, a lot of people never make it down there. They don't know that anything's down there. she suggested the kiosk could be up by the parking lot when people arrive, and then explain to them all the things that are there, and that if they go down the hill and across the bridge, then there's a trail over there. So that type of thing. And then there's, some other possibilities. Next slide, please. And then the last one would be tree identification tags. I believe this is the same type of tag that is put on some of the trees along Goshen Walking Trail. These are commercially available through a manufacturer that makes them available for dozens and dozens of species of trees. They're relatively inexpensive. They're about $5 a piece. You can either post them on a large tree, you can mount them directly to the tree, or this one in the picture is like on a stake in the ground. And if you were to, for example, try to use this type of sign at Gable Park, where the trees are very small, Beth's suggestion was that the trees there or shrubs tend to be planted in clusters. So you would just have to put a stake by the cluster and not identify every one. So she's full of good ideas like that. And then this is an example of these interpretive wayside signs. You can see in the bottom of the screen, they are available in different versions, two stands, one stand, or one leg. And we envision of these being educational signs about noteworthy features of the site. For example, we could put theoretically more than one in Gable Park. One might talk about the value of trees. Another one might talk about the importance of native plants. The third one might talk about, like, what is a watershed? Why is this planting here? And they're durable, they're colorful, they have a long lifespan, they'd be professionally designed and fabricated. And this is a mock-up of what one of the signs might be like in Gable Park. And I would love your feedback on this. This is something Beth put together, but I already see something I don't like about this, which is the name of the sign. The lead on this slide says, "Get your sign," says Gable Park. To me, that's not what an interpretive sign should be about, because you already know you're in Gable Park. There would be a park entrance sign that would tell you that. What should be the largest headline was something like, "This is a watershed," or "This is a rain garden," or something more catchy, but something specific to the educational topic of the sign. And but what we're looking at here is the general. Well, not only the general, but the specifics, like what's the color palette? Would the top be blue? Because the blue would pick up the logo, or this is a mock-up. So she's proposing to put the township seal like at the top. But again, if you had blue against blue, you wouldn't see it. And would the heading where it says "a garden that works" always be brown? Would the type font be a sans serif type font? Would it be a white background? When we have to credit other organizations, such as the funder, which is frequently required, would those logos be at the bottom? Would we have a QR code? So this is the type of thing that we're looking to get input on. If you go to the next slide, it kind of explains, one last idea is in her comprehensive vision of having this signage program, she's thinking that we should have a database of all the signs that exist in the township, and that the township could manage it, and that it might include a yearly or bi-yearly inspection grade of the signs to see which ones might need to be replaced, so we could budget for that the next year. And that if we keep track of all these signs, it would help to eliminate different volunteer bodies or organizations from creating signs that are too similar, that are like repetitive. Like if there's already a sign, 3 signs on rain gardens, you wouldn't want to do another one. You might focus on a different topic. this also explains the benefits. So a proposed implementation timeframe, which is a little hard to see, but in July, we developed the proposal. In August, we are planning to present it to the EAC, which is today. The Shade Tree Advisory Commission, we thought should weigh in, Parks and Rec also. And if you want to present it to Parks and Rec, or I can.
Yeah, Thursday night is the meeting. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I might be too late to get on the agenda, but I usually give reports, so maybe I can ask, bring an update to it. I do a liaison report, so that we could incorporate it.
Great.
If not, I'll have to check with Rosie if that item that we have. If I give her a liaison report, it's basically reporting like, and so I don't necessarily need item. I usually liaison report for parks and police.
Are you talking about making a presentation at the Parks and Rec committee?
Basically reporting what's in the signs, just get their buy-in and making them aware.
Right, if you're gonna put the signs in the parks, they do need to give the official recommendation, but you're more than welcome to share any ideas or anything like that with them. So.
So what's the best way to
Totally fine.
Well, that's an administrative question.
Yeah.
The fact is, this proposal should be shared with them among other bodies. We want them to be aware of it. We want them to weigh in on it and give us our feedback.
Right,
Beth and I are taking the lead on this, but we realize it's a very collaborative effort. And that, once established, all of the bodies mentioned will be bound by it, including the Historical Society, Trails and Greenways. So
What I can do then is I'll do a liaison report and then we'll discuss it and then they can take the following month an official vote of support for the next, because they have to have.
yeah, and provide feedback. It's not just yay or nay. We want feedback and thoughts, because this is the time when we're developing
It's
it.
interesting you mentioned the Historical Society, because I would have thought on the slide that says possible location, we ought to be including the properties that the township owns, but the Historical Society operates. They ought to have some formal signage. I think they don't now. I mean, that recognizes both entities. I don't know whether the Historical Society leases those properties, or it's just sort of a omnibus operating agreement, or I don't know what the documentation is.
I'm not really sure how that works. I
Well,
can-
whatever it is, we ought to, Paper Mill House doesn't have a formal sign. And although there's a sign on the Square Tavern, it's not a consistent sign with
Yeah.
anything else.
That's a good point, Harry. I'll reach out to, well, I know Kathy Luskis is involved, or Kathy Cavalier. Yeah. Yeah, unless, does the EAC have a liaison to the
Well,
historic?
I guess it comes down to budgetary item, where the funding that. So if it's coming out of EAC's budget, or is it coming out of parks or budget, that would be. They wouldn't.
Yeah, well, that is a good item, but I'm just saying to weigh in on the signage system recommendation. Harry's right. I think the Historical Society should be involved and have a say, but and that, I don't know that it's up to us to say, where's the money going to come from?
No, it's not coming out of our budget.
No, no, we don't have the money.
If it does, it's not going to happen, because we don't. I have to say, I love your timetable, but I don't think you've been around this township very long.
Well, Harry, you have to start somewhere, but I think that's why Bruce said, I'm going to get some inexpensive signs made in the meantime.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm having a hard time seeing this. So that's the Historical Society. Trails and Greenways, Beth has already presented to, so we'll have to, I guess she and I will be the receivers of all the input from the bodies, and we'll have to, vet and coordinate. Not everybody's going to get everything they want, but we
Yeah.
love ideas and suggestions. Sure.
I think everyone would avoid an iterative process
Yeah.
going back and forth because it won't happen next year.
Right.
if we,
Yeah.
do that too
But it's
much.
budgetary request item time, so let's put this on the budgetary request for next year.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having a database of all of the signs, because if you do ever want to just, if you want to overhaul and update all of them, you have
Sure.
them right there.
Yep.
Boom. It's an easy
Mhm.
process once you have them logged initially. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, that was Beth's idea. Um,
I had two comments. Is the township logo static? Is there any idea of changing the current township logo? I had heard that at one time.
I don't know if there's any plans on changing the logo, but I know with signage just as a whole, we are going to be doing a rebranding. And I think we're still in the process of coming up with that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
not sure where we are as of the moment, but
Uh-huh.
I know that's something that's being worked on.
All right.
well, that's important to know.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that, Steve.
Yeah, so I was kind of just waiting until you guys were done your discussion just to get any ideas that you had out, but I'm not sure the timeline or where we're at with it, but like I said, we are investigating rebranding on pretty much all the township signs. And one point that I do want to make sure that, everyone's just clear on, if there's a sign that's going in the parks, Park and Recreation would have to approve.
Right.
That kind of stuff. If there's a sign going on the trails, Trail Crewmates has to approve.
Sure.
So I just want to make sure, we're all just staying.
We stay in our
those
lane.
Boundaries, yeah.
Stay in your lane.
I'll get clarification on that.
So, but that is something that could be part of the signage system proposal is what's the approval process, what's the budgeting process, just to make clear. But she and I were thinking more of the content, the system and the content, but yes.
Right, and the
approval.
content can be whatever the committees decide it can be. I think what the board and what the township is looking for is more look of everything. But I mean, the content's all you guys, so.
Right, because all of the signs for the parks right now are the green and white. And so if they stay with that, would be something we need to be, like that blue sign you had, green and white is everything at the parks right now. All of the park signs are green and white.
Well, can you go back to that picture of the township signs? It's not just parks, it's also, keep going back. That one. You see, it's not just the parks,
Yeah.
but the top one is the township building,
Municipal,
the
right.
municipal building. So Steve, when you say they're thinking of rebranding, you mean these signs?
Yes, those types of signs.
Okay,
Are they too plain?
And there could be more types of signs involved. I'm just not fully sure of the whole
well,
scope.
maybe you and I are talking about the same thing.
We very well could be.
Because it sounds very much like what we're doing. Okay, so the right hand has to know what the left hand is doing here. But, so, okay, so I thank you, Rose, that's what I wanted. Can you go back to the timetable? And that was my last slide.
And the question is, who is the rebranding? Is that under Steve Neese or is that the PR person? Who's kind of incorporating that overall?
I believe it's a mixture of a lot of different people. I think the PR person is heavily involved and administration as well.
Okay, good. Just so that's another person to bring into the loop as
Yep.
well.
Okay, so we thought in August, we would present this, get the dialogue going with the different entities. In September, we would revise the proposal based on the feedback from the different bodies. Present it to the township manager. And I know Steve always has ideas of how and when he wants to start socializing a topic with the Board of Supervisors. So then we would have something to share with him. And I don't know if September's too late for budget, but if we want to just start setting aside money for new signs, just kind of arbitrarily an amount of money. So that if this gets finalized mid 2023, there's at least some funding to start doing something. And then maybe in November, it could be actually, well, October, maybe it's presented to the Board of Supervisors. And then November, maybe they vote on it and it's approved and adopted. And then you publicize it. And then start ordering your signs. But
I would.
That could be very aggressive.
If I were you, I would strike the middle bullet in the September timeframe.
okay,
I just don't know what that means, and it's certainly not in our, we shouldn't be dictating that at all, it seems to me. And I think, Cindy, as a matter of fact, that if this is as ambitious as it looks, the most that's gonna happen is you might get some money set aside in next year's budget for it. I mean, I don't think they're gonna find money in this year's budget.
Oh, no,
of any
not.
significance to.
no, not this year's budget, but.
Well, but you're talking here about signs delivered and installed in December, January.
Okay, Harry, I'm sorry. I said, we already have money that's been sitting
couple
around
signs, yeah.
for a couple of signs. And that's grant funding from the Gable Park grants.
Okay,
That was put in from the very beginning. It's been set aside for years, waiting for these signs
Right.
to be made. So
okay,
those two signs are already paid for.
okay.
And also with Greer Park and with Newtown Square Meadow Preserve, both of the master plans have interpretive signs and a lot of signage issues already in that plan. So it would be great to have some continuity in your design going forward, because once they would be selected, it's important to have what exactly you want and how it should be delivered. And like you said, making sure Parks and Rec, Shade Tree, everyone is brought into the table and heard.
My other comment is, we credit the funders. Should we, like in the case of Green Weaver, they're a vendor. Do we really have to credit the vendors for the work they've been paid to do?
If they give gifts in kind, you should, but if they don't, if they just do the work, I don't know if we're obligated to do that. If they give you any type of reduction in costs or things of that
No,
nature.
I don't think they did, no.
No, they did. They did it.
It's just-
They did a wonderful job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
a service vendor.
But we're setting a
Yeah.
precedent that every
True,
Every time.
vendor gets a
true.
chance.
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
You know, the supervisors and acknowledge them because they're, you know, what I mean, if we're going to do that, they're the
Yeah.
ones who kind of would be really important, or even individual EACs or what, I mean, whatever you need to do to acknowledge those people that made it happen.
I don't want to start putting
Yeah, well,
people's
just
names.
Newtown Township Board of Supervisors and the
No,
Environmental.
I
Protection
think
Council.
they're understood. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate the input and feel free to send me, you know, comments afterwards, specific suggestions.
Any further discussion of item 8.1, the signs?
I think it's a good project.
Next one is 8.2. Again, Cindy, you're the closest to.
Yeah. Okay, so this, I'll try to keep this I'll try to keep this conversation limited. But this falls under the umbrella of planting 1,000 trees. And the fact that I'm the liaison to the Shade Tree Commission. And that the EAC had come up with this idea and succeeded in getting it to be part of the MS4 plan and did some early planning. But when we knew that the Shade Tree Commission was going to be formed, then we kind of stepped back because we realized that this would be their area of responsibility. So they've been in existence for about a year now, 6 months, 9 months, a year,
Oh,
and
longer than that.
a while.
I think it's 2 years now.
2 years, okay, so 2 years. And I wondered where we are with having a master plan for planting 1,000 trees. So a few of us met informally with the Shade Tree, Sheila, Janet Kravanis, Paul, myself, met with Trish and Carol, just to get a dialogue going, to get to know them. I had never really met them in their capacity before, and started exchanging ideas about what could be done, what were their thoughts about it. Also, we were our township was offered the opportunity to go in together on an order of free trees and shrubs as part of the Keystone 10 million initiative, which is funded through the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, to join with the Upper Providence EAC and Ridley Creek Park on their order for trees and shrubs and materials this fall. It was time sensitive, and in the interest of taking advantage of this, we we presented a tentative plan to Carol and Trish to see what they thought about it, with a focus on planting at two of the areas that seem to be most in need, one of which was Newbie Park, because of the focus that's been placed on that recently, and also Brookside Park needs trees and shrubs. So this would be on a magnitude of Gable Park type effort twice over, and it would have to happen in September. And it's anywhere from 80 to 120 shrubs or trees per location. The trees and shrubs would be smaller than what's at Gable Park. They're 3-inch by 3-inch by 9-inch seedlings. Again, free of charge, as well as tree protection in the form of tubes, tube socks, stakes, and stake drivers. It would require some funding that I had sent a proposal to Bruce, because he said we have several $1,000s left in the EAC budget. It would involve participation from or support from CRC in terms of recruiting corporate volunteer groups, which they did for both the Rain Gardens and Gable Park, and also require support from Dave Hilbert, who now is no longer with CRC, but has done work for Public Works in terms of helping with the actual logistics of plant placement, plant support, just running around and helping make things happen. And it would require work on our part and hopefully Parks and Rec to recruit community volunteers. So the plants would be delivered in mid-September. The dates, tentative dates of which CRC said they think they could provide corporate groups would be Friday, September 16th and Friday, September 30th. So we would follow on Saturday morning with community volunteers to do planting. But this has all come together very quickly. And it just needs a lot of socialization, a lot of support, quick decisions. And I don't know if it can happen fast enough.
Well, one point of that is, if you recall, Wade Pollock did approach the EAC and ask for our support for Newbie, specifically to give it the TLC. So this works perfectly with his goal of us planting and helping that, because based on community input. So he would love to hear more details. He was, I reached him on everything, brought him up to speed on everything. His only concern is making sure that, parks can't run it themselves. And as we know, because it's trees, Shade Tree would be the principal party on this, and we would all provide support for them, but it would primarily come through Shade Tree. But Shade Tree has spoken with you and given their full blessing in terms of making this a joint effort, correct?
They've expressed interest in
Okay.
it. They are not accustomed to doing anything of this magnitude.
Right.
So it is a bit daunting to them.
But I think they have to officially present it to their board to take it their official vote.
I don't know. This is a gray area. I'm trying to support them in moving the needle on this. And now that we have all these different entities and different bodies, it's like who goes first, who's going to take the lead. But I just see a lot of trees not being planted.
Yes. And we have an MS4 plan of 1,000 trees that need to be planted by
And-
2025.
And, you know, this is a string that when you pull, it touches many things. I put together a tentative plant order, not being a tree expert, but to get some insights. What I was trying to do is put together a proposal and put something out there so that people would have something to react to. So that the Shade Tree Committee or Commission could say, you know, what would it look like to plant these? Where could we get these trees? Because they, when we met with them, they're like, where would we get trees? How would we do this? And so to me, it's like trying to make it concrete, put together a package and say, this is how it could be done. Are you interested in doing this? What would it take? So we met with, a few of us met last Friday morning, 2 weeks ago, with Dave Hilbert, to bring him in because part of our proposal would involve hiring him and tapping his expertise. So again, it was Wade, Sheila, I, and
Janet.
Janet
Paul.
and Dave met at Newbie and Brookside. Paul briefly joined us.
Yeah.
To walk the parks and just say, does this make sense? Are these the right species? Is this the right location? What would be involved? While we were there, it became very apparent that part of any tree planting would involve invasives management. Because there are a lot of invasive plants that are really, you know, you've got vines crawling up the trees, you've got thickets of Japanese knotweed running through Newbie Park. You know, if you're going to plant shrubs there, you're going to have to manage the invasives because they're going to come in. Then we went to Brookside Park and we were all very surprised to see that there's been some active invasives management there done very recently. I don't know if you know anything about this, Steve, but the area right behind the playground was about a 10-foot wide swath was scorched earth, basically scorched earth that had, it seemed to be that knotweed had been cut down, you know, almost to the ground and maybe treated with chemicals. So I don't know what was going on there. I'm sure it was well needed.
Yes.
But if you're going to plant trees in there, you know, you can't just stick trees in where Japanese knotweed has been actively growing. You have to have some kind of long-range plan of how you're going to keep the Japanese knotweed and other invasives at bay. Sorry, I was not recording. So that's just kind of part of the big picture.
So do we have,
oh,
We're
well,
not
then-
talking about this.
this is the planting. This
We've
is the list.
shifted gears, right?
Well-
We left newbie, we're here.
What's that?
Okay.
That's the tree.
That's the actual list of all the
That's the,
trees.
that's the order for Newbie and Brookside. But then this goes into a larger conversation. And I don't know if you can bring us up to speed on your conversation on Friday, but any tree planting effort should be done totally in concert with the MS4 plan. The township arborist and or engineer should look these things over and confirm that these trees will count towards that. And because they understand what the criteria is. Because this is a lot of effort to be doing for trees if they're not going to count.
Right.
So how that will happen, I don't know. I'm just raising a red flag that
A lot of effort to plant the trees if they're not.
if they don't
They
count for the
count for the
MS4. I mean, like,
MS4.
I love planting trees,
Yeah.
but the objective of this is to plant 1,000 trees that will help achieve something towards MS4. I'm not the MS4 engineer. I don't know. I know that there are parsed and non-parsed areas within the township. I know that there are some limitations or criteria on where a tree needs to be planted to count towards fulfilling that. I don't know that, but somebody should be looking at it from that perspective.
Right,
we-
so I would just like to add that after the respective committee makes that recommendation, the township engineer will make sure that that's in the storm or the MS4 area. And then from there, the township arborist will make sure it's the right tree for the right situation and so forth. So we do have some sort of plan set up to make sure that we're putting the right trees in the right spot.
Right, because I understand for Brookside, at our meeting, there was some discussion about some stream bank restoration. at
Well, that's
Brookside,
another thing.
And we
is-
need to make sure we're aware of
Yes,
that, because we
in-
don't want to be planning an area that some eventual things. And we also had some questions whether, and maybe we could even ask Eileen about live staking. Does that count toward MS4? Is that something we can incorporate into the plan? Because that's a really important way for us to help not only erosion control, street bank restoration, but it would really be helpful for us to achieve the numbers rather quickly too. That's a,
If
so
it counts.
if it counts, right? So we need to, and again, we're not just trying to hit the number, because we want trees. We would love, I mean, Cindy, I know would love to have 5,000 trees, but we have to be able to be realistic in achieving our goals. And of course, respecting the boundaries, because Shade Tree, we know, is responsible for the trees. And we're just trying to make sure all of us are partnering together to make this come to fruition.
What size of trees are we talking about? Bare roots, sapling? or-
The plant, see, this is part of the whole conversation. I'm very glad, Steve, to hear that the engineer will review and the arborist will review. Of course, that's after we've all put a lot of effort into coming up with a plan. So while it's good to have the review, if they could also share with us in advance
Right.
what the criteria is, then we could present a plan that hopefully will be more likely to be approved and require less revision. Sheila raised a good point, and that is, I know that in the original MS4 pollution reduction plan, the primary means of mitigation was stream bank remediation. And there were targeted locations which were tentative but not firm. And there were stretches of Fox's Run in Greer Park, Brookside Park, and I think perhaps also the stream that feeds into the pond at Drexel Lodge Park. That was 3 years ago or 2 years ago that was proposed. I have no idea.
I can provide an
Okay.
update on all that,
Okay,
okay?
Well,
Which
yeah.
actually dovetails into the
Okay.
next agenda item,
okay,
which is the,
okay. So I'll stop there.
Okay. 8.3, it has to do with environmental funding opportunities. And I put as an attachment something that Chester County put together for Chester County townships to be aware of possible grants coming up that have, that are environmental centric. And I wanted to, and I know that Steve is proposing to include a grant consultant in the 2023 budget.
Excellent.
It hasn't been
Excellent.
passed, but he's proposing it. And I'm 100% for it. I
Yeah.
think it
I'm,
We've
great
been pushing
return
for
on
it for
investment.
years.
I'd like to see it happen.
Yeah.
So I think we have to convey that we're supporting that grant writer. And we can do it by feeding the grant, giving Steve and others a list of grants that are going on and other grant resources. There's a subscription service, it's cheap, it's $50 a year, that finds grants opportunities for you and allows you to plan ahead. Because Cindy and I have done, most of the grants that the EAC have done, and we're amateurs. And it's going to be very competitive with MS4. And to get money, you're going to need a professional. And one grant would pay the salary of a grant writer. So we're supporting that. In terms of funding, the MS4 plan, my understanding that at the next supervisors meeting, they're going to give Stantec the go-ahead to write a specification for the next step in the process, which will be a design of how they plan to meet the requirements of MS4. We've heard in the past that the township's looking for the most cost-effective solution.
no, I don't believe that.
And trees have, short term, a very difficult time competing with rocks and concrete in terms of getting, immediate results.
Yeah.
What we have to do is play a role in formulating that specification, giving Stantec information about what we'd like to do with trees, and sell the notion that even though that doing these trees might be more expensive than pouring the concrete, that has much greater long-term value. And we have to meet with Stantec and Steve shortly to begin that campaign. To give them information to include in the specification, which will be used to drive the next step in the process.
So it sounds like the township is not putting this out to bid. 'Cause
No,
This is, no,
they're
if
not
they're,
putting out the design to bid. They're asking Stantec to do it as our township engineer.
well, that's what I mean.
They're
They're not
developing the
putting,
bid sheet. And that vendors will then propose
okay.
just to do what's on that
Yeah,
specification.
but some vendors could also come up with designs.
I think Stantec is doing the design.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I believe that was an item a couple of months ago on the
Yeah,
supervisors,
okay.
because
I
they
didn't hear
were
that.
Yeah.
awarded, because they were
Well,
awarded for Breer
it-
Park as well.
It's good to know that.
I know,
My understanding was that the total MS4 budget would probably be $1.4 million over 5 years. And while on a cost per credit or whatever you want to call it, basis, trees might have a higher cost that way. So far, how much money has the township spent on planting trees? Probably less than 3 digits.
oh, yeah, definitely less. Yeah.
So whatever we propose is
Uh-huh.
going to be far less.
But I'm just,
Yeah.
council's got to
yeah.
spend money right now to adhere to the MS4 plan. We want to plant 1,000 trees, right? We
So the
have
township
to
has
sell-
agreed to plant.
We have to sell the notion that it makes sense to include our 1,000 trees or a portion of those trees in our MS4 exercise.
Got it. Okay.
And we have to recognize that there's a better return on investment for concrete than there is for trees. We have to sell the
I'm a
notion.
little confused. I had thought this 1,000 tree initiative was part of the MS4 plan. No,
Yes,
it is, it is, it is.
I don't know.
It is, you seem to be not quite on the same page.
I don't think we are on the same page.
If you look at the document, it is in there.
It's in the MS4,
It is in there.
the 1,000 trees.
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
well, I'm mistaken then.
That may not be the desire or the
Uh-huh.
perception,
Mhm.
but it is in
Cindy,
there.
I think I want to just tell you about one little vignette, because I just don't know how much you're going to run into in this 1,000 tree thing. The township owns Paper Mill House, and there is about a roughly 1.5 acres, 2 acres. It's just, you can't get in there. It's all invasive, it's all jammed up. The vines have killed a number of large trees. It's a disaster. I was proposing that the township consider substantially opening that up and replanting it. And you could probably put, depending on what size tree you're talking about, 25, 30 trees in that area, because when you clean it all out, there's not going to be much that's worth saving. There are only 2 or 3 or 4 mature trees in the whole thing. I was told, and George, I think conceptually would support that. I was told that the township and Steve and others don't want, you would have to plan it. You would have to do some sort of a landscape plan for the area. And I was told that the township did not want to open up more unfinished plans until they started to get funding for and really see a way to complete some of the ones which are in the queue. And so that I shouldn't expect to see any action on this before I die. I mean, didn't quite say that, but I think that's what we're talking about. You may run into that in some of these other areas where it's necessary to, I'm not suggesting that this isn't a good, I think this is an excellent stake in the ground and beginning of the thing. But I'm just saying that to the extent it requires a lot of meaningful cleaning out of existing invasives and so forth to get in there to do a responsible job in replanting it. You get this chicken and egg problem that's vicious.
Yes.
Well, I think there was areas identified from Eileen in the blue. There are key areas for the township. If you guys recall the maps that she presented to us, I think it was that last year. So there was already areas that they are, prioritizing in the township. So we want to make sure that, I mean, Cindy's right. We should be talking with the township engineers to make sure what their plans are, because otherwise we're creating a plan which needs to be changed. So it's better to get the input immediately what they want. Because even like for Greer Park, their plans to have like 125 minimum trees according to the Greer Park plan. And that was 125 minimum is what they were hoping, but that was based on the master plan. And there was actually more room that could encourage that, but nothing can happen again until that plan will be underway. And I understand that starting, I'm not sure when Greer Park will be shovels in the ground, but that's for the.
I'm sure that this little area of Paper Mill would easily qualify in the MS4 because it's right up against the
Yep.
Darby Creek.
Yep.
And Greer Park, where anything you plant in Greer Park will qualify for
Qualify, yes.
MS4 because
Right.
it's a flood zone.
Yes.
I would think so, Harry. But I just want to make sure.
But I don't know about some of these other areas.
I'm told there's a map in the
Yes.
MS4 plan that identifies the tree zones you're looking for.
Yes, that's the blue. Remember, that was the meeting that, I don't know if you guys, I saw this meeting where she put it up and showed the blue zone and it specifically, like my street, Beechwood. I mean, they're bonus points if you hit in certain categories. And
Uh-huh.
that was what the blue
Can
zone
I
was.
get a copy of this?
I haven't seen it, but
But
I
we
will-
can get
I
it.
hear that it exists.
Yes.
Why
Eileen.
do we not have it? It would be
Mhm.
helpful to have that.
So if we can.
I've seen
get it.
earlier maps,
Mhm.
but they're like a year or two old, so
Yeah.
I don't know if they're current.
But I think in terms of acting upon this, look, you're getting these trees for free, correct? This, to me, sounds like a no-brainer. All we need to do is help execute the plan. If CRC is supporting us, we just need to make sure that Shade Tree is supportive, right? Parks and Rec is on board with this. Newtown Square and Bloom, with their, man, remember their beautification, and they would be supportive of it, but they can't, again, provide too much. But if we bring all the people to the table and CRC is providing the trees and the funding, to me, it makes no sense for us not to jump on it, as long as the areas that we're planning to put in are helpful. We need to get approved by the police department to make sure that we're not impacting sight lines in the park where they're, by the basketball courts or areas that they can see into. So as long as we,
And as long as this all happens, like within the next week, so we can start recruiting volunteers in
Yes.
September. And see, that's where we really need, I think, a tree working group. Because there are so many bodies that have to weigh in on this. The engineer, the arborist, Parks and Rec, the
Shade Tree.
police, Shade Tree. There's all Indians in the room and there's no chief. There's no one leading the charge.
well, I think
And-
Steve
and-
could do that. Steve Neese. I think he would be able to bring all the people
But
to the
to
table.
get all these bodies together and talking and not just talking about it at all of our separate meetings. And like the fact that this order has come up, we know that this is going to happen every year. The Chesapeake Bay Foundation is trying to give away millions of trees and shrubs. Fall is the ideal time to do this for two reasons. One, it's a better planting time because you're going into the colder weather and then you don't have to water them as much. Who wants to water 240 trees and shrubs in Newbie Park or Brookside? We don't have the manpower. Secondly, the plant material that Chesapeake Bay makes available. They do it once in the spring and once in the fall. In the spring, they give you seedlings, bare root, that are about this big. And George did order 100 of those, and those were the ones he was trying to give away at the Pico thing. They're about this big. You plant something that big in the spring and then don't water it, it's gone. You know, what's your survival rate going to be? Nothing. You plant something bigger in the fall, they make available 3 by 3 by 9-inch seedlings, which are bigger. So you're going to have a more, a more established plant, although it's still quite small. And you're heading into the fall. But why are we scrambling in August to put this together? We know we want to plant 1,000 trees. We know MS4 is. Who's taking the lead on coming up with a more organized plan? We got the Tree Vitalize grant for over there. That didn't cost the township much. And look at what happened there. But, this should be part of a coordinated long-term plan.
And I think also EAC stepped back because we were letting shade
We
tree.
were trying to stay in our own lane,
Yes,
but
but shade
no
tree.
traffic was
Right.
moving.
Right. Well, can we make a motion that we as a board of EAC are supportive of this effort? We would like to make sure this comes to into fruition and ask the Steve Neese and the supervisors for us in a way to collaborate with all the appropriate boards to move forward on this. And at least if we make a motion of support, we're encouraging this to happen. And obviously we can't control anything, but is that helpful?
I think we got to go further. I'm not sure that we couldn't take what Cindy's done and what we know and
Right.
put the shell of a plan together and then throw it over the fence to Steve and to the supervisors to let them bring these committees together and make it happen.
Well, I've had the shell of a plan.
Uh-huh.
I've got Dave Hilbert, who's given me a cost estimate, and he's lined up. I've got CRC on, tentatively with dates penciled in. They've only got 2 dates left this fall, and they need to know by Friday.
Right.
If we're going to commit to them or not. And if we're not going to take these plants, we need to cancel the order, or we're going to have 240 bushes and shrubs sitting around in pots that need to be picked up in the middle of September, and 240 tubes and stakes.
And I believe George Sheritz is on vacation, I think, till Thursday.
He will be out on Wednesday, I believe.
Oh, I got a reminder that he's out of the office till Wednesday. Okay.
And I have copied George on this, but rightly so. He can't make a commitment or move ahead until the township, gives us the green light. So, yeah, I don't know what the next step is.
When do the supervisors meet again?
Next Monday.
Next Monday.
Next Monday?
So can I just add one thing?
Sure.
I can't really speak to the order that we're waiting for because I'm just not sure what's going on with that. But in terms of getting this whole project done as a whole, I spoke with Steve Neese today. I saw an email from Trish Adams asking to form some sort of subcommittee with all the different committees in the township working on this. And there's no real problem with everyone working together trying to come up with a plan. But as I've said before, this committee would, if you want to plant trees in a park, it would have to make the recommendation to parks and they would go to the board. So there are these little loopholes that you have to go through in terms of who's responsible for what. But
You call them loopholes, I would call them roadblocks.
sure.
But it
Right.
sounds
Yeah,
like
that's the right
Parks and
term for
Rec
that.
would have to vote on it, and then it would go to the engineer, and then it would go to the arborist, and then it would go to the board of
Well,
supervisors.
Parks and Rec already officially came before this board and asked your support for this. So they asked you to, remember that Wade was here last, or I guess it was that June. He came before us and asked for our recommendations to deal
In
with.
principle.
In principle, right.
Yeah.
So he has come forth, so, and they'll be meeting Thursday.
We do have too many bodies who have
Right.
sort of quasi jurisdiction over this issue. I think the supervisors could do the township good by choosing one of the existing bodies and saying, you are responsible for moving the planting of these trees forward. You'd have to work with Stantec to make it work with the MS4 plan and so forth. And anyone else who wants to be heard, go visit with the hoo-hoos and tell them what you think. But I just think creating yet a 14th entity, even on an ad hoc basis, that has a representative from 11 different entities is, I mean, Cindy, it might work, but again, I'm got a longevity here of another about 7 years and I'll be dead, and they won't be planted. And I don't, I can see right now that we're gonna be asking for more than one extension from the state to complete this MS4. And what do we have till 25?
I think it's 25. isn't it?
Yeah, 2025 is the
There's no
deadline.
way we're gonna make 25. I mean, I don't know. What do I know? I don't know. But I mean, if they're just going into the design phase of the compliance and they haven't even yet handed the baton to Stantec, how the heck are they gonna make, how are you gonna make 25?
Well, hopefully, guys, the powers that be have wisdom that we're not privy to. So, but I do know George has in his nursery, a nice, he's been sharing, I mean, developing a nice bank of trees in his nursery. So I'm hoping that that will be part of his magic number as well. So I would love it if we could, you know, do we
Well-
need a motion, just support that EAC is on board with supporting this, and we would like to see it come forward? Is that helpful or is that
Well, if-
necessary?
If I could just respond to Harry's comment. Harry, I agree with you. I don't want another group. I'm just trying to break the.
I'm not
logjam.
faulting you for
Yeah, I'm
suggesting
just
it. I
trying
think
to say
it's,
how.
I appreciate
love
all
it
the
if-
work that went into this. Both of these documents are very constructive.
Well, you haven't even seen the other plan,
No,
which is a township-wide plan that proposes locations for 1,000 trees,
Yeah, we'll get that one.
500 in each watershed. I developed it 2
well, I
years
have
ago.
this,
and it
I
went
have
nowhere.
this one.
Well, that's probably just Brookside and Greer Park. I don't know which one you're looking
No,
at.
this is all, it says MS 4,000.
Oh, okay, that's the one, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen
But
it.
that needs to be updated. It needs to be reviewed by people, but
Mhm.
I'm not in charge of it, so.
There's two things here. About the decision has to be made by Friday. What do we need to do to make the decision by Friday? you
I
think?
need to know that I'm not gonna be standing out there at the end of the diving board by myself.
Yeah.
Okay,
What happens on Friday?
No,
She has to
The-
let
the-
CRC know. if we're gonna-
we have ordered the trees and shrubs from Keystone, but I was doing that on spec, hoping that the township would get behind this. And if they're not gonna get behind it, I'm gonna cancel the order. But,
Did
how does
George
the
get a
township
chance?
need to get behind it?
well, can we use EAC funding to
Uh-huh,
pay Trish and Dave Hilbert?
uh-huh.
Who's gonna have to okay that before I authorize those people?
Oh.
Is Public Works gonna make their resources available to the extent that's needed, whether it's like doing pre-treatment of invasives,
Uh-huh.
providing augers to drip holes, you know, just
No,
like they
no.
did at Greer Park,
I'm not sure
right?
where we
You
are.
know,
Did George
What
review
location?
the plans for these trees when you put the order in, or I know he's aware of it, right? But did he ever get a chance to give you
he
input on
has
that?
been silent on the issue.
And I guess too, he's probably can only act when he's
Yeah.
given the permission to act on it.
We'll be talking about planting these trees.
September 17th,
Where? Newbie Park
Ruby Park,
and
Okay.
Brookside Park.
Okay,
October 1st is Brookside.
why don't I write a one-page memo to Steve saying we need a decision? Is he around this week or?
He'll be around all week.
Okay. To get this, to get the blessing that you're looking for. So we can move forward on that. And then we get the whole master plan we have to worry about as a second item, but short term, I think it'd be foolish not to.
Well,
plant
but
some
I would
trees.
just say if it involves purchasing large, living stock,
Mhm.
I'm very comfortable with using our budget to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
First,
Mhm.
Yeah, it would be, well, no, we don't have to purchase anything.
Yeah, because
It's
CRC's
all
paid.
free.
okay.
The
Yeah.
well,
money would be used to pay Dave Hilbert
Yeah.
to give us more help, which he did a fabulous job at Greer Park. And we give a token amount to CRC for them to recruit the corporate volunteers. It's like $200 per group.
So it sounds the only impediment is can we use George? Can we depend on Public Works to help us out?
Right. Can you CC Trish Adams and and Wade Pollock on that, just so that you're bringing them into the loop, and anyone else that needs to be brought in, Cindy?
Okay, talking about a decision by Friday.
Yep.
I kind of don't want a whole bunch of input. I'll copy.
Yeah, no, just see
Well,
blank or
but we
whatever.
need people on board because this is a huge amount of effort for me and
Yeah.
I'm working full time
Yeah,
and,
I appreciate
you
that.
know,
And from, from the volunteers, one good thing about at least the September 17th list at Newbie, when we were at the the Newbie Park event in the spring, we already were heavily involved talking with neighbors. Joe lives right around the corner
Okay, Joe.
from Newbie Park. So Joe is going to have.
September 17th for Newry Park is not a good date
Why?
because Joe is out of town that weekend.
Oh,
And so is a lot of the neighborhood, because a lot of the neighborhood is going on a camping trip. The Culverton
We
camping trip.
can switch dates.
If you want
Oh,
to
we
flip flop
can.
days, October 1st, I am definitely available.
okay.
We
So-
can flip.
Wait, so Joe lives around next to a Newbie Park, so he will be definitely one of the coordinators. But what's really important too is we have a list of neighbors and residents in that area who who agreed to help out. So if we can get that, that would be really helpful. I also will be able to start the school rep, but I need the time, and it would be better if Newbie was October 1st, because it would give us a little bit more time to get that things,
And that's
but then
the
it puts
bigger
us on the hook for getting the development of the seven.
Now, but the other thing is I'm going to be out of town on that weekend.
Are you October 1st?
Yes. But we have you and
I'll be
Dane.
there.
I can
Yeah.
mentor you
Sure.
and. tell you
And
what
I
to
do have to leave the country at one point in between, so that's why I'm trying to work around. If these dates are solid, I'm trying to adjust my schedule, but if they're not, so.
Those are the windows we're looking at. Those are the windows I'm talking about.
I put together a memo draft, send it to you just to make sure my details are correct. Get it
That
to
would be
Steve,
great. Thank you.
and we'll get that done
Thank
in the
you.
next 2 days.
Thank
Part
you.
2. That's that.
Yeah, Cindy, can you just, as a courtesy, call Trish just to let her know this would happen? And just so that way she doesn't think that we're being blindsided her, because remember, trees is under their domain, so we just want to respect her role and make sure that she's aware of it. I know, I just
If
want to
it's
make sure
under
we're
domain,
sensitive. I
We
know,
can get them to step up and do something. I mean,
I know, Bruce. I'm just trying to make sure that we keep them
Yeah.
all happy
I
and
hear you.
bless everything and everyone's good. Kumbaya.
Okay, that point 1. Point 2 is the master plan. And I think that can be worked on, we can talk. And
Yeah, we've
it
kind of touched
dovetails
on
into
it.
the MS4 specifications. Am I characterizing this specification correctly, that it's a spec to what work is going to be done to address the requirements of MS4?
Yes, it's just a detailed plan.
Like a scope of work for a contractor. for
Right.
example.
So Steve, do you know what the specs are going to address? Like in the PRP, it had proposed possible stream lengths of certain streams and linear.
I don't know the exact details off of my head. I would have
Because
to
it's been cross
follow up
moving.
on that.
But it sounds like that's been settled.
Correct, just the areas of where everything's gonna be.
Steve, has that document been made public? Is that on the website
Yeah,
so we
where could
can?
I find that?
There is an MS4 page with a lot of information on that. I'm not sure if that exact map is on there. I would have to double check, but
I know there's an MS4 page. I
I
know
didn't
there's
see
an MS4 page. I didn't know if that is on it.
it might be. I would have to follow up on that.
Okay. If it's not, can you make sure it's posted? Thank you.
So we're going to do the memo short term. We're going to do some work so that we can finalize the presentation of our draft master plan for tree planting. And we can review that in our September meeting. Does that sound like it's doable and makes sense?
Finalize this document. This
Uh,
doc- this document?
That's an element of what's going to be
Okay,
finalized.
and then this document.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But who do we sell Drexel Lodge Park to?
It says not owned by the township on your matrix.
Then that's a mistake.
Oh,
Drexel Lodge Park is actually technically owned by the municipal authority, but they lease it out to the township.
Then it isn't wrong.
Oh, it is
Right,
separately
legal
owned.
owners of the municipal authority.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Oh,
Good.
I'm sorry to dominate so much of this meeting, but another part of planting 1,000 trees is
caring for them
Yes.
after they're planted. And it can't all be on us or the shade tree or Public Works or Township Arborist. So I've been thinking, how do we equip the township and the owners of these new trees to be more prepared to help? And I know many of us here have gone through the tree tender training from the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, which is a fabulous 4-week training program, and become tree advocates, become more knowledgeable about how to care for trees. So I think that part of this planting 1,000 trees should be to develop a cadre of a few dozen or perhaps more residents who have gone through this training. It's offered twice a year by the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, spring and fall. I've been in touch with PHS to get the dates of the fall course. It costs $40 a person. It's 4 Thursday nights for like 2 hours, and then it's 1 Saturday or Sunday for a hands-on training. The training is offered virtually this year. I was thinking that we could really promote it to especially residents in the neighborhoods that are targeted on the 1,000 trees and get them to attend this. The idea has been proposed that we could have a group viewing thing where we would show it here, invite people to come every Thursday night, and kind of form a camaraderie. People get to know each other. You know, it becomes a social thing. People realize they're not the only one out there doing this. Neighbors bring their neighbors. And then we have people like Sheila, who might become a tree captain for her block. And then the people who take the tree tender training, you might get them excited about talking this up with their neighbors, and they might become a tree captain for their street, because part of the 1,000 tree plan is that we target high priority neighborhoods and target certain streets so that when the trees go in, you get a number of trees on a particular street. So the thought was that we could perhaps have a group viewing. PHS suggested this. And to promote this even further, you could make it more attractive by offering people who complete the course a free tree, which could be ordered through the fall bare root tree offer. So, you know, we're talking about ways of getting trees into the community. This is another way of doing it. So that was,
I think it might be helpful to add that if you're planting trees on private properties, and it's MS4 related and it's going to go in that area, you don't necessarily need to get shade tree approval because they are responsible for trees on township owned properties and only trees along the street that I think it's 25 feet. But anything that's in the MS4 area and kind of deep in private properties, you know, if you work with homeowners, you don't need to go through shade tree.
We don't need to go through shade tree for
Correct.
street tree programs.
If there's street trees, you will have to. Because the shade tree is responsible for the street
The
trees.
street trees.
But if
Okay.
it doesn't fall in that area and it's kind of just in someone's property, if you just work with that homeowner, you don't have to go through the shade tree for that. But you will have to go through the board of supervisors if any funds or anything like that are being paid.
Okay, this would, if we were to do this, we would use funds that are already in our budget.
Right, and
So they've
I
already
believe
been.
that if you're already budgeted for them, I think you should be good to go.
What do you mean? We would have to go through shade
It
tree?
would not.
They wouldn't need to have any recommendations or anything like that. Because they're only responsible for township owned trees,
Right.
like on township properties and anything that's in the right of way, what you would call a street tree.
I
But
think
isn't
there's two parts of shade tree. One
Right.
is the approval for township property.
Correct.
The second part, I think, should be in the chart of shade tree is advocacy to the people to plant trees on their own property.
Right,
Right.
It's not just approval.
right.
You know, it's being out there convincing people to do something on their own private property.
Right.
So that's what we would advocate for.
Right, it would definitely help to have them involved,
Yeah,
but in terms of, the recommending aspect of it.
sure. Mhm. We done that discussion. I think we've exhausted it. I'll move on to the next.
But as a question, are
Uh,
those dates you're gonna know by Friday? Because I will need to start getting the volunteers organized heavily.
Okay.
So, I mean, school starts, but yeah, September 17th, guys, is, it's, yeah,
Well, be
We're
prepared
talking
to see an
6 weeks.
email or two from me
6
with
weeks.
questions.
Yep.
Between.
Yep.
Now and the next couple days. Old business. Discussion and possible action on the Sustainable Business Program. Really not that much to discuss. We've got a cool logo that Dane put together. Got to write Steve was going to write a resolution. I'll give him a template that he can write. It doesn't really have to be that substantial, but we'd like to, throw that to the supervisors and, a meeting or two from now.
Okay, yeah, you may want to send that to Suzanne as well.
Okay, all right.
Did you make a presentation? of-
Yeah, and Dane and I made a presentation to supervisors. I guess it was 2 meetings ago. I was very well received, got their blessing.
Good.
And it was agreed that a resolution was a good way to officially launch it. We like the idea, so when we go to businesses, we can say that the township has passed a resolution endorsing the program.
Right.
The next one, 9.2, is your Cindy Gable Park.
Oh, just very briefly. I met a couple weeks ago with Dave Hilbert, who, as you know, helped plan and supervise the planting of. I met a couple weeks ago with Dave Hilbert, who was the person who helped plan and plant the Gable Park trees and shrubs to kind of assess, now that we're almost a year in, what condition is the planting in. It was a very positive outcome. He said out of 140 trees and shrubs planted, only 2 have died. That is an
Incredible.
exceptional survival rate. I attribute that to good planting, but also maintenance. George Sheretz, in his infinite wisdom, used the budget that's normally allocated for summer interns and instead hired Dave to care for trees on township property. So Dave had spent a lot of time giving individual care and attention to each one of the plants, changing their location in an instance of a couple that were too wet, too dry. He adjusted all the tree protection on them to suit, and just has been giving them a lot of oversight, which is wonderful. So I'm really pleased to be able to give that positive report.
Item number 10 is public comment. Thank you very much for joining us and putting up with
Was
some
any
our-
of this understandable? to-
Been in engineering for 40 years, so this is all very appealing. You're getting around.
Oh, so, and you know the engineering side, how you guys complicate everything.
Are you the person that Janet Travanis had mentioned? Can you introduce yourself for the folks
Should
here?
we go to the microphone or? not?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
First
then
of
we
all,
record
welcome.
them.
yeah.
My name is Steve Medill.
Can you just make sure that microphone's green? Thank you.
My name is Steve DiMedio. I'm hoping to retire later this year, and I was looking to be maybe more active in community things when I retire. I like birds, and that's how I had a discussion with Janet. I think Cindy, I met you at Drexel Lodge Park a few weeks ago. So I thought I'd sit in a meeting or two just to see how the process works. And
Okay.
what
Perfect.
opportunities will be available.
All right.
That's it for me.
We have jobs for you.
Plenty of
You're gonna
opportunities.
wish to go back to work, 'cause I already have your name and number.
No,
We're keeping you in the loop on our conversation, and we'll get your email and make sure.
Oh, my God, we could
Stay
use your
abreast of it.
expertise. Absolutely.
You're the Drexel
alum, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for coming. I hope we didn't scare you away, but we're always looking for experts to advise on things, and as little or as much time as you can give, that'd be great.
You know how to plant trees. These guys have some work.
We'll teach it.
Um, Number 11 are just, I'll make comments about those two items. One is Harry and I have not given up on the plastic bag ban. We think it's moving forward. There's been, a couple
Hiccups.
concerns about implementing a ban. And I think we've worked around that. Harry and I think we worked around it. One had to do with the township's authority as a second-class township to implement such a ban. Harry did research, found other second-class townships that have done this already. So it's our position that we do have the authority to implement a plastic bag ban. The second part is, maybe I was a little more optimistic than I should have been, but I thought we could just pass the ordinance and that would be it. It's been suggested, I think it's a great idea, that we have a public meeting or two hosted by the supervisors to introduce the business community and the residents to the notion of, and get their input on a plastic bag ban instead of just throwing it out there. Radnor did that, and they decided at their most recent, they went through this process, and they decided that at their last meeting that they're going to pass or vote on an ordinance at their next meeting. So theirs is pretty much a done deal as a result of following this process.
Good.
So Steve, Harry, the solicitor, and Leonard are going to meet in the next couple weeks and put a plan together with the goal of getting this thing done this year. I hope earlier rather than sooner. So that's for plastic bag ban.
Excellent.
Excellent. Good job.
Well, now, when he said moving forward, I mean, I hope so. I hope so. By the way, when we say second-class township, we mean township of the second class. Second-class township sounds like it could mean a bunch of things, but they're different classes of town. But as Bruce says, West Goshen and Easttown are both townships of the second class. And they didn't seem to pause on their statutory authority to put the thing in place. Look, I don't really think there's an issue about it, but we will have that conversation and hopefully end it. The Business Association, I understand, pretty much yawned when the subject came up. They're not all upset about it. And all the people who generate 70% of the plastic bags in our township, Rite Aid, CVS, Acme, and Wawa, all have outlets in New Jersey who now cannot hand out single-use plastic bags, so they know how to do it. Bruce was just in a Wawa, New Jersey. He got a paper bag, or he would have gotten a paper bag if he'd asked for it. So it's not rocket science, and I just don't.
I asked the guy.
What media has done is they've had now for a couple months on their website an opportunity for businesses to react by communicating on a special box if they have issues or questions and so forth. So I think media is very close to putting one in place also. It's something we have to do. I mean, we just have to do it for credibility purposes, if nothing else.
Just on the Wawa note, I went to Wawa, got a couple things, 3 or 4 things, and I asked the guy didn't say anything about a bag. I said, oh, don't you guys offer bags? Not that I wanted one, I was just interested. In his story, he said, no, but you can buy a paper bag for 35 cents. So Wawa has it down.
Yeah.
And the idea that the big companies would be hard to work with, they're already done it. So that shouldn't be a problem for us. So in your lifetime, that's what I mean by moving something along. It'll happen while you're still with us, Harry.
Harry, we'll keep you on life support until it's passed.
And the final thing is 11.2 is we kind of have to get back on the goals and sustainability measure of things that drive some of this stuff, because it does make our arguments stronger if we tie it to a sustainability goal. And we'll talk about that at our next meeting.
So are you saying that means that when we're like proposing something, we should just always integrate and link it back to something?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, so like when you do your tree memo this week.
But
Exactly.
You're gonna hand it
basically,
back.
am I right in
Okay.
saying on that checklist, we all took responsibility for one or more line items?
Right.
And you're asking for our thoughts.
No,
on-
I'm not asking. I think,
I've done mine.
I know you have, but, and you did a spectacular job, and we had.
I wrote an ordinance on burning.
Yeah. I just think we've got to peg some of our activities back to the list. I haven't looked at the list, to be honest with you. 2 months.
Just see,
so
yeah, to see what we need to
We
do.
have to bring it out against it. Any other closing comments? We did pretty good at the 11.
For liaison for Parks and Rec, if you can, just to spread the word, we've got lots going on. We have the Fitness in the Park series that goes on till August 23rd. It's every Tuesday night at 6:15. It's fun. Young Forever Fitness, phenomenal guy. He's been so great. He's about mobility and movement. 2 professional, trainers and personal trainers, or nutrition coach. That's Tuesday night. We start Yoga in the Park series in August, and it'll be Monday, August 15th, the 23rd, and the 29th. And we're also going to do kids time, story time yoga, which will be the 29th. So we have morning and evening sessions. I'll be sharing all that information out, but it's really good because, we're getting people into the parks, and these are great opportunities. So I will make them aware of volunteer opportunities as well while we're there. So good stuff.
Just
And
out of curiosity, are these people primarily from Newtown Square?
yeah, a majority of people are that attend the classes are Newtown Square, but we do open it up to Marple Newtown Recreation. And listen, I don't check cards. If somebody shows up for a free exercise class in our township, I'm figuring they're coming here, they're shopping, they're buying, whatever.
Sure.
I welcome everyone, anyone, and I actually encourage people at the parks to come out and do these classes, and so we had a Zumbini class last week. It was fabulous. So it's really great because it gets people in our environment. And once you're out in our environments and they appreciate trees, they appreciate the beauty. So it's a really win-win. So all good stuff.
My observation from working at the farmer's market is most of the people I meet are not from the township.
Oh,
So it's, I'm not sure if you've experienced
Yeah.
the same thing. So I can see that being a good draw.
yeah, a lot of people come, now there's actually one lady who comes from Westchester, which is ironic because I was thinking that's a long way to come for a class. And she said she used to live in this area. She meets up with her friend and they have a fabulous time and they go out for dinner afterwards. So for me, it's a win-win. They're using our parks, they're going to our restaurants and they're enjoying themselves. So it's all good stuff.
Any other comments?
I would just like to add, we're getting closer to budget season.
Yeah.
So for next agenda, you may want to just put a discussion on there at least for just next year's budget items.
Okay, yeah, I'll distribute that, my request to you folks this week.
Perfect.
All
Cindy,
right, with
excellent
that
job.
said, I'm gonna close this meeting at 6:38. Yeah. And we got voters.